So first of all, let's have an overview of VXLAN. VXLAN is kind of a tunnel that we create between two endpoints. This kind of type of a tunnel is connectionless. What I mean by that is you do not really create a connection. We do not really create kind of a handshake between the two devices in here. Now, what I mean by that is, let's say an endpoint 1 and endpoint 2 want to talk to each other. They send UDP packets to each other. This UDP packet, of course, contains the VXLAN packet inside itself. This is why I call it a tunnel, because we have extra headers in here. And the actual IP packet that we want to send through this header to the other side is like this. We have the packet itself. On top of that, we have the VXLAN header. On top of that, we put just a UDP header, and then we just send it to the endpoint. So this is going to give us a lot of capabilities. The first thing that is going to be important to using this kind of a tunnel is scalability. So I'm just going to extend my layer 2 networks from one side to the other side. When I have layer 2 network, I have something like 4094 VLANs. Normally, we do not really have so many VLANs in our network, but let's say that we want to have more than that. For some reason, we need more than that amount of VLANs. So what can we do? VXLAN is going to give us something like a 24-bit VNID identifier, which is going to give us something like 16,777,000 something VLANs for us. So that's going to give us an extra amount of VLANs. I call it VLANs. This is not actually a VLAN. This is a VXLAN, or let's say VXLAN network identifier, VNID, what we call it. But what I mean by that is we have a lot of different segmentations in here. Now we are not limited to just 4,000 different ones. The other one is flexibility. First of all, VXLAN is not just invented to be used inside the data center. I can have it inside the service provider. I can have multi-homing in different pops of service providers. I can have VXLAN inside the data center, and I can create a VXLAN tunnel inside the data center to reach the other data center. So you can see that VXLAN has a lot of different usages. So, but we are here kind of concentrated on the data center usage of VXLAN. So we are going to talk about that more than the others. And then we have the efficiency. So when I have VXLAN, I use it inside the class network, right? This is the topology which I'm going to use for my course in here. So you can see that I have leaf switches in here. Leaf switches are connected to spine switches. We have class topology in this case. Like I said, of course, you do not really have to have class topology just to enable VXLAN in your network, because as I told you, we use this inside the net service provider as well. But let's say that traditionally what we use is a class topology inside data center, and this means that I have multiple paths towards the spines from one leaf. This is going to give me multiple paths, and equal cost multipathing could be enabled in this case. It is by default enabled, as a matter of fact, and we use kind of a hashing. We are going to talk about this. This hash is going to be generated based on the packet itself that we are just putting a UDP header on top of that, and then we are sending over one of these links towards the spines in here, right? So that is what gives us something like an ECMP thing in here, and if one of the links isn't working, that's okay, because we are talking layer 3, right? So this is going to be out of the scope, and the other links are going to be used just to compensate this one. So the packet is, of course, I have some packet overview in here. You can see that in this packet, we have a VXLAN header. We are going to talk about VXLAN header a little bit later, but the overall packet that we have is a layer 2 frame. And then the layer 2 frame has a VXLAN header on top of that. The VXLAN header has multiple segments. We are going to talk about this a little bit later, but it is 8 bytes. On top of that, we have a UDP header, as I told you, because we are just having the frame with an IP header. On top of that, the VXLAN header. On top of that, the UDP header, right? So what I'm going to have in here is 8 bytes of UDP header, 8 bytes of VXLAN header. Then I have 20 bytes of IP header and 14 bytes of the Ethernet header. So overall, that's going to give us something like 50 bytes. And this 50 bytes should be accounted when you configure MTU in your network. Because if you do not have enough room for that, you're going to see dropped packets, or maybe your packets are going to be fragmented, and this is going to decrease the speed a lot. Fragmentation is going to use the general CPU, and that is going to hurt the performance very, very badly. So we have an extra 50 bytes in here. And in case, for example, you want to have, let's say, some uh, kind of a trunking, that's going to give you even more than that, something like 4 bytes more than that. But that 50 bytes should be accounted here. In this table, of course, the frame header is just forgotten to be added. So what we have is the overall 50 bytes is again mentioned in here. So if you have a 1500 bytes, the uh, usual default MTU, then you're going to be in trouble because, like I said, maybe your packets are going to be fragmented. You don't really want this. So what you're going to do is to enable the giant frames in here, jumbo frames. A jumbo frame is 9216 in MTU. So you just enable that, and then you are going to be okay with this part. So you can see that in this header, I have different parts. The outer MAC header is going to be added later, but the VXLAN header is going to be important for us. That's going to be the first 8 bytes that you can have in here. And the most important part is going to be this VNID, as a matter of fact, which is a 24-bit value. It could be anywhere from 1 to 16 million, but you go from 1000 something to 16 million. And then this is going to just differentiate between different VLANs in your network, because you just attach one of these to any of the VLANs that you have on a device, and then based on this, you create something that we call it kind of a broadcast domain, actually. Very similar to what you have as, let's say, bridge domain on Cisco ACI. So that's going to give you this. On top of that, you're going to see this UDP header. This UDP header has a source port and a length and stuff like that, but the port number is going to be important. Based on a hash that you get from the overall packet, then you are going to have random ports on top of that. This is going to give you kind of a hashing between the selection of the ports, of course, from the leaves towards the spines towards the destination. So that is what we have in here. As I told you, this is going to give us a tunnel. And specifically, any of the endpoints of the tunnels is called VXLAN tunnel endpoint, or VTEP. Or sometimes we just call it TEP, tunnel endpoints, right? Because we use VXLAN, VTEP is very much common. And also, that is going to create a tunnel using a virtual interface that we call it network virtual interface, NVI interface. And this NVI interface is going to be the source of the tunnel. The tunnel is connectionless. This means that we just send the packets using UDP, as I told you, towards the destination. Maybe we are able to send the tunnel, send the packet towards the destination. Maybe the packet is going to be dropped on the way. We cannot really tell. But in data center environment, because we know that the links are very reliable, so the packet loss is not going to be so much. So we are not going to panic about that. There is not going to be any problem with this. So we have the VXLAN tunnel, stateless, connectionless, no handshake over UDP. We can have dual homing. If specifically on service providers, this dual homing is very, very important for us. And but here we do not really mean by dual homing just connection to VXLAN endpoint. What we mean in here is we just connect using L2 or L3 interface. So for each one of the VTEPs, which is going to be our leaf switches, we can have L2 ports, which is going to send the packets towards the destination using bridging, and also L3 ports. That's okay. We can just have unique IP addresses on fabric spines and even the destination endpoints. And then we are going to have kind of a mapping in here for, let's say, the MAC addresses that are discovered through the leaves and there is going to be kind of a synchronization between the devices for understanding where this MAC address resides. If this is local, then you will see the port number, something like an ARP table. You see a port number, and next to that port number, you can just see the MAC address. If this comes from another VTEP, then you are going to see the VTEP ID, which is kind of an IP address, and then next to that, the MAC address is going to be put for you. So that is what we have in here. Next is going to be the underlay and overlay. I'm just going to start the configuration of the underlay in the next video. I just want to show you that the underlay is totally separate from overlay. What I have is the underlay is going to be configured once, and I always say that the underlay should be boring, should be very simple. Its only mission is just to make sure that the packets go from one side to the other side. We are going to have a routing enabled inside that, but that is just for the fabric itself. We don't care about reachability to the underlay from other side of the network. We do not really care about the endpoints understanding what is happening inside the underlay. So we just configure underlay. The underlay is going to be very high speed. It is invisible, as I told you. It should be boring. It should be very simple. It should be easy to troubleshoot. You should not really go with very complex configuration inside that. All you need to do is to just create a simple network just to make sure that everything is happening swiftly without any problem. The overlay, of course, is where the complexity comes in. So you create the overlay on top of this underlay, and then you create your own topology using that. You're going to have a separate control plane for that. And the mission in here is just to create the connection between different devices. And also you want to have maybe multiple tenants. If you want to have multi-tenancy enabled in your network, this is totally possible using VRFs on top of the underlay that you have in here. So we are going to create a control plane and data plane. Maybe if you go with something that we call it VXLAN flood and learn, you do not really have a control plane. You do, but that control plane is not going to save any information for you. But if you go with, let's say, VXLAN BGP EVPN, then you're going to have BGP as the control plane just to have a database of all the MAC addresses and IP addresses that are in your network. We are going to talk about this in detail later. So before doing anything, before going to more of the overview, what I'm going to do is to go to my network in next video, and I'm just going to start configuring some part of the network just to show you that we have an underlay, and the underlay is super simple to be configured.